Coming to you live for the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Friday morning. A feel-good Friday. A Valentine's Day Friday. And Aaron Rodgers is officially gone Friday. What the hell are the Jets going to do next? Friday. So it is the first non-football Friday, but of course those are going to be some storylines, spring training, all of that good stuff, basketball, hockey, everything in February. Everything is just gearing up for a huge March and April and May around here. You could just feel it in your bones, Boomer. Good morning. How are you? Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day to you too, Gio. I'm so happy to be here.
And thanks for that box of chocolates you left in my office. That was very, very nice.
Just don't eat it all one day.
I know. I had one before the show. I'll have one after the show and bring the home rest to the girls. So thank you. I mean, it was really for them. I appreciate it.
Yes, it was. Thanks for bringing up hockey because last night was great. And I'm wearing a jersey again today.
I didn't really bring up hockey. I said all of the sports.
I actually slept in the jersey last night.
Did you? That's why it stinks?
It doesn't really stink.
Yeah, it smells like
no.
old musty man.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. Both Maggie and Allie just said, man, you smell good this morning.
Well, I mean,
maybe it was my
maybe they
aftershave.
maybe it's the pheromones that the women like the old musty man.
I think it was more the aftershave. But anyway, I don't care. It doesn't matter. We won last night, and there's going to be a huge game Saturday night, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock between Canada and USA. Canadians booed the American national anthem. I don't blame them. I really don't. I can understand why they would do that. But once they become the 51st state, they'll know how to stand in respect for it. So not worried about that at all. But that was some game last night by the
Nobody
Americans.
cares what you just said, and you won't get it through your big fat head. Just remember what all your pals said. Nobody cares about hockey. Nobody cares about hockey.
Except for those of us who are really passionate about it and appreciate the guys playing hard last night, even though
that was the real Randy Newman, by the way. Not a lot of people know that he was the real Randy Newman. So Izzo did his version, and then we sent it to Randy Newman, and he actually recorded one for us, which was so nice and free of charge, too, by the way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I will say, though, that the Aaron Rodgers saga is finally over. It is finally over, and unfortunately for Aaron, it didn't work out the way that he wanted it to, and certainly it didn't work out for me the way that I wanted it to. It didn't work out for Brett Favre the way that he wanted it to. I think Vinny had a modicum of success here and then blew out his Achilles. I mean, and this brings me to the Giants and whether or not they are really actively trying to acquire Matthew Stafford. I mean, the point being is, look, guys, it's great, and I know that the guys want to win, and I know he's a great player, but you're talking about a 37-year-old that's looking for a contract extension. Does it really, truly make sense?
Ton of stuff.
Does it? I mean,
yeah, I like the idea, actually. I do.
I mean, again, how much is he going to want? How is that going to impact your salary cap? I think he's a really good player. You're going down the road of a 37-year-old quarterback, paying him north of $40 million a year, which is what it's going to take. To me, just does not sound like if you want to win next year, maybe I guess you could get a wild card depending on the draft and maybe some other free agents you're able to acquire. But I mean, I just think if I see Matthew Stafford in Vegas. I don't know why I see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see him in a lot of places, and I'm not worried about he just turned 37, so it's not like he's going to be 38 when the season starts.
When I turned 37, that was old. I remember reading when I was 35, 36, and 37. Well, he's 35, he's 36. So he's getting up there in age. And now 37 is the new 27.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. More like the early 30s because you have guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady that have played into their 40s. When Aaron Rodgers was 36, 37, he was still winning MVPs, and then the Jets acquired him when he was 40, 41, which is it's different than 37 and 36. And it's not a realistic thing, in my opinion, unless the Giants are the only team that wants to give him the contract extension, because I don't think that he's going to want to be a part of the Giants. They've been terrible for so long. Does he really want to take on that type of rebuild at this stage of his career? If the money is right, maybe. But there will be another team whether it's the Rams, the Raiders, the Steelers, somebody will give him the contract he wants. It's in a better situation than the Giants are.
I agree with that. And I was just thinking about, Brian Daboll's offense. What kind of offense does he like to run?
Well, he does like to have a mobile quarterback.
He likes to have an RPO offense.
Yeah.
And, that's what he did with, of course, Josh Allen. That's what he tried to do with Daniel Jones. He was also trying to do that, last year a little bit with the guys he had. But I don't know. To me, as much as I understand why the Giants would consider it, if in fact they are considering it, I would understand that because the fan base would, I think it's probably split 50-50 that maybe you can do it and maybe you can win immediately. But let's just take a look at the division that you're in and look at the quarterbacks that you're playing. So you got Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. So now you're going to add a 37-year-old quarterback who may get a few injuries. And, it's just you're talking about older players and you're talking about paying them a lot of money. It's one thing if you're getting Matthew Stafford $1.5 million. I'm all for that.
Well, like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I would be all for that.
Yeah.
100% all for that. If that's the alternative and that's your stopgap guy, and then you got another guy in a hopper, then I'm talking about, like, I can live with that.
All right,
but if you have to trade for a guy and that trade includes a high second-round pick, and then you got to pay the guy, that's a whole nother set of circumstances that maybe the Giants would want to do that because they would think that would make them immediately competitive.
Well, yes. You know what I love about us on this Valentine's Day?
What?
I love that there are times where I'll say something and you'll put it in a different way, and I go, when you put it that way, I can understand. And I feel like when I do that, you go, like with the Bill Belichick girlfriend thing and showing up with all the rings, you're like, I don't know why he's doing that. And they said it's a big F you to the owners. And you're like, you know what? When you put it that way, I understand. So we're not too prideful in those situations.
No, we defer to the other guy.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to do that here. And hopefully you say, when you put it that way, I understand. It doesn't mean you would agree with the Giants, but this is why I think they're seriously considering it. Two reasons. And one is a scenario that you brought up a couple months ago when the season was ending and going into next year and keeping Daboll and Shane. All right, what happens if you draft a rookie quarterback? You got a stopgap guy that stinks. You're 1-7 again. What do you think's going to happen?
They're going to fire the guys.
Exactly.
And then that rookie quarterback, whoever it is going to have to start over with a new team, yes.
Okay. And
a new coaching staff.
Right. And not only that, you're thinking Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are like, I got to somehow keep my job. And if they don't think that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is going to be Jaden Daniels in year one, then they're like, we're just basically walking the plank right now. It's a matter of time. And then also, we could say what we want about the Giants and the Saquon thing being dead, even though it gets brought up everywhere nationally, whether it's Jimmy Fallon or whatever stupid late night show that they're on, talking about the Giants thing. There is more pressure than ever on this regime, than any other regime since Tom Coughlin, in my opinion, to not suck and be the embarrassment of the NFL next year. So when you tell me, look at the division, you going to bring this guy in here? Yes, because we can't compete any other way. Because what's the other option? We draft a quarterback and hope that he's Jaden Daniels, which the chances of that are slim with those two guys, especially because we've talked about how they're not that next caliber. Or you bring in a stopgap guy that's worse than Matthew Stafford, and then you're just keeping the seat warm for a guy who's going to have growing pains, and then you're fired at the end of next year. So Matthew Stafford to Joe Shane and Brian Daboll is a life preserver.
Yes, it's the savior.
So that's why they would do it.
Yeah, but if I'm the owner again, I'm like, do we want to go down this road with a guy that really has nothing, no ties at all to our team? We have to trade for him. And it's probably be a second round and maybe a conditional pick next year, depending on how well it goes here.
Well, then I go into Joe Shane's office, and if John Mara's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay the guy. It's too old. I saw what happened with the Jets. That's a similar thing. I don't want to do it. Then I would say to John Mara, if I'm Joe Shane, candidly, okay, are you going to stand by us when we go through this growing pains with this young quarterback? Are you going to stand by us, or are you going to be embarrassed again with a 1-7, 2-8 start, and then we're done at the end of the year?
Who was the guy that went from the Washington Nationals to the Angels?
Anthony Rendon.
Anthony Rendon. Okay. So the Anthony Rendon contract, which was a mammoth contract, people were shocked that he got the contract that he got, basically has negatively impacted all the guys trying to line up now at that same age getting those contracts. I mean, that was written by one of the baseball writers, and it made a lot of sense to me how it negatively impacted, Pete Alonso's negotiations and all these guys that now are in their 30s expecting 6-7 year deals, and they just didn't get them because everybody's looking at that Anthony Rendon contract going, man, what a mess that was. Here's my other side of this whole thing is that you are going to hamstring your salary cap to a certain extent, depending on what kind of money you would have to give somebody like Matthew Stafford, and you're also going to be losing a very valuable draft pick, of course.
It wouldn't be their first round.
And what happens if that team goes, 7-10 next year, which is just as likely with Matthew. I don't know. As much as I admire him, like him, appreciate him, know that he can throw in any conditions, to me it seems like going to Vegas would make a little bit more sense for him. Because that's another division where you're looking at the quarterbacks and you're looking at the coaches and you're going, oh my God, this is going to be, you got Harbaugh and you got Herbert out here, you got Reed and you got Mahomes out here. I mean, you got Bo Nix and Sean Payton out here.
Yeah, well, but also, Matthew Stafford and Kelly Stafford made it clear in her comments, they got their Super Bowl. They spent many years in Detroit as losers on that team, went to L.A., they got their Super Bowl. Right now, what is important to him is the contract. So I don't think that he's necessarily going to look at these teams and say, what's the best place to win? He's going to say, which team is going to pay me the money that I want to get paid because I've got this is my last contract. And the team, they're going to say, hey, I'll give you 37, 38, 39. You pay me like one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and I'll give you that performance to end the career. So that's really what's – and by the way, prior to Aaron Rodgers, there had been a lot of examples of top-level quarterbacks going to other teams and having success. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre was 8-3 here, got hurt, went down the tubes, but then went to Minnesota, took him to the championship game. It was a 12-4 team. He had one of his best seasons. So there's a lot of examples of that. Aaron Rodgers came to the Jets, got caught in the Jets quagmire, and then drowned in the quicksand that is in their organization.
He didn't help himself either. But,
yeah, so
I mean, you have Matthew Stafford, who's made $365 million in his career, and maybe this is the last bite of the apple for him. So maybe it's like a 3-year, $120 million contract that will give him. He'll be the richest guy in the history of the league up to this point. With the amount of money that he has pocketed and has made, and this is when they were in the middle of the season and they were talking about Matthew Stafford, I told you he was going to want a new contract at the end of the year, and the question is, are the Rams going to want to put up with this whole thing again? And I told you about the off the field stuff with his wife. They're not happy about any of that crap either. Like, they have taken care of him. They paid him a lot of money. He helped them win a Super Bowl. Okay. We're not erecting a statue of you. Mm-hmm. If we're going to erect the statue of anybody, it's going to be Aaron Donald because he's going to be our Hall of Fame player.
Damn right.
And I think that, Matthew Stafford would be a Hall of Fame player, but you got to take into account a lot of his games and most of his games came in Detroit. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing with, when you get Matthew, you get the whole package now that you're going to have to deal with if you're a coach.
Yeah, but it's
and
not.
They don't like that. I'm telling you, they don't like that stuff.
Well,
man.
I know they don't, but it's also, if they get what they want from the contract, then, you're not going to hear from Kelly Stafford as much. I didn't hear a peep from her until this offseason when they weren't getting what they wanted when it came to a contract. They also posted something else on Instagram, like, whatever the future holds or something. So this is all contract driven.
Yeah, it's all passive aggressive,
right.
Contract driven.
Yeah, that's what it is. So maybe if you get the contract, it won't be. And I'm also, we're just, we're fresh off of Aaron Rodgers here, where nothing feels like a distraction compared to that. So I'm not.
Oh, Matthew won't be that.
No,
certainly Matthew wouldn't be that type of. That wouldn't be the situation. No, that's a whole total different situation. And no matter how you look at why they released Aaron Rodgers, I think we all know the reasons.
Yeah, and this is also a reason why. See, this is when you're John Mara and you keep these guys, and then you do the press conference that he did at the end of the season where he goes, I have to be a lot happier now next year at this time to be able to keep these guys. And I know this isn't popular in Giants land and all of these things, which is just basically like, hey, firing squad, get ready. And then Joe Shane and Brian Dable are like, well, how in the hell are we going to win if we're going with a rookie quarterback when we got this guillotine over our head? So it's John Mara's the one who's putting the pressure on them to win, and they're looking around the league like, how in the hell am I supposed to do this?
You see the Giants are putting up 10% of the stake of the Giants for sale?
I was thinking, are you interested?
No, I would need like $600 million to do that, and then Tish's would get $300 million, and the Maras would get $300 million.
Okay.
All tax-free.
Because I know that you would love to be a part of an ownership group. You've talked about, running a team and
I have never talked about that.
You said your number one dream job for you would be the president of the Rangers. So this would be like the president of the Giants in a way. You'd have ownership stake and influence what's going on in the premier franchise in the NFL.
They don't play on ice.
Well, okay, but it's football. You're a football guy.
Yeah, I'm a football guy.
Football guy. Yeah, New York football guy. Think about the stories that would be written.
So the question really is why are they trying to sell 10% of the team? They want to pocket some do-re mi for themselves, or are they using this? Are they going to use this money to pay off some other? Maybe acquire a guy, get some fresh dough in there, and have some cash on hand to be paying some people. Cash, it's cash. Give me cash.
Yeah. Well, now since you painted the scenario to me of what happened with the Wilpons, where they had to divest all of these assets so the kids didn't get murdered with the taxes and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So every time that stuff like this comes up,
and plus they got hammered in the Madoff situation.
Right. But every time stuff like this comes up, that's the first thing I say is, these guys are getting old and they're starting to do this stuff so their kids don't get effed by the system.
Yeah, I would think that once you pass 70, you're starting to figure out how to pass on these assets without having to pay the death tax.
So you really think that there could be a possibility that they would be selling 10% of the team to have some money to be able to pay a guy like Matthew Stafford up front? And do the things that Woody Johnson did with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, like a bonus would be a nice little bonus. And, the NFL passed a law or a rule within the league that you can go out there and acquire or sell 10%. That's how Tom Brady bought 10% of the Las Vegas Raiders. That you can get private equity to buy 10% of your team. And
he got a full 10%, Brady?
I don't know if he got a full 10%, but he did get
a percentage.
Yeah, and I don't know what the valuation of that team is. I would think the New York Giants, you'd have to look it up in Forbes, maybe $6.5 billion.
Yeah, it's got to be right around there. Easy. Don't normally take a call in the first segment, but I want to take this one because it's on topic here, and that's David in Westchester. What's going on, David?
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning,
What's
David.
happening, David? What's going on?
Happy Friday. Could not agree with you more, Boomer, on the game last night in Canada. Pissed me the heck off. Anyway, real quick on Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Don't worry about it. They'll learn the words in a few months, and we'll be fine.
Getting to Stafford, two quick questions. Number one, why do you think Vegas is a better landing spot? I think they're in a similar situation as the Giants are. And number two, I think Stafford has an opt-out, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, he does. He does have an opt-out. Yeah, that's why the Rams and Sean McVay said after their loss to the Eagles in the playoffs, I want to get this resolved quickly, meaning he knew that Matthew Stafford was going to want a contract extension with the Rams, or they were going to have to trade him and move on.
Yeah, and the reason why Vegas would be more attractive is, one, it's closer to where they are now. Two, it's a no state income tax state. Three, there's a guy like Pete Carroll there who has won championships before. Four, Chip Kelly is the offensive coordinator.
Keep going. There's another one.
I said it's no state income tax.
Indoors.
Yeah.
Indoors.
Okay. So there's 5 reasons for you right there.
Yeah.
That good enough?
There's a lot of great reasons why you'd want to go there. Plus, both are somewhat legacy franchises, I would think.
Yeah.
And, you got Tom Brady there, too, if you're Matthew Stafford.
The Jets and the Giants right now are just not
radioactive.
They're not a desirable destination for anybody. You're going to have to build through the drafts and then overpay for guys to come here. Those are going to be the two ways to turn it around, because nobody is going to want to play for these two teams the way that they have been the last number of years.
Either that or hit on one of these quarterbacks that turns out to be better than we think they are.
Yes. I mean, that right there is the injection that fixes every franchise. All right, Boomer and Gio on a Feel Good Friday on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.